Hey, everybody, welcome and thanks for joining us. We are here with a special guest. We have Russell Owen, who is here to talk to us about his latest film called The Shepherd. Russell has also directed the film Patient Zero, which you can find currently on Amazon Prime. So Russell, thanks for joining us, man.
Thanks for having me.
Appreciate no problem. So Russell, growing up, you were kind of surrounded by ancient myths and legends of ghost stories and stuff like that. So is there any stories that have kind of stood out to you the most or kind of inspired some of your works?
Yeah, I mean, growing up in North Wales, it's a beautiful place, but it's got a very, very ancient history and stories from medieval to pagan going back, and they're handed down over generations. But one of the most famous ones there, and certainly now, is the Smalls Lighthouse story. It's a true story, and it's the same one that Robert Eggers used for the lighthouse.
Oh, okay.
Which annoyingly, I was filming the same time he was filming, and it was Kate Dickie, who's worked with him before in The Witch, turned around and said, "Oh, Robert's making this film." I was like, but obviously, very different film, very, very, very good film. Yeah. Really good to see somebody bring that on truly to life, even though it's set in I think New England or somewhere. It's amazing. Yeah. And yeah, I mean, it was always ghost stories, those traditional ghost stories that inspired the film more than anything else. It was the first step when I first started writing it was going to be a comic book, because I was doing illustration and screenwriting at a college, and I thought no one's ever going to give me money to make this into a film, so I'm going to do a comic. I can do that. I can draw. And I was like, about 3 pages in, I was getting really detailed with it. I was like, this is going to take me years. But it certainly didn't take me 15 years. It took me to make the film. So the comic book would have been finished way before that. But yeah, film's my love.
So that leads me into the second question. You graduated in 2005, and I heard that this was the dream project. Mm-hmm. So why did it take so long to get to this big dream project?
A whole host of reasons. One of them was for years I always looked like a 12-year-old. So whenever I go into meetings, they're like, "Oh, when you grow up, you can come back in and make," and I'm 35 trying to get something made. And then eventually I didn't give up. I'd made a couple of short films and I'd won awards and it was all great. But then I was really, really skint. I was absolutely poor and needed to try and find work that I enjoyed. And I managed to land some work working for photographers and then agencies making commercials. And that went on for years whilst I was making little shorts on the side. And a producer saw one of my shorts and he was really stuck for a director. And I was brought on last minute to make the zombie film. And I said I'd do it for free if finally someone would give me the money to make Shepherd next. And he said, "Okay, deal." He took what was on his slate next and he put Shepherd there. And I was like, right. And that's what, I mean, there's all sorts of ways into making your films. And that was mine. I struck a deal.
That's pretty awesome. That's quite a deal to strike. Like,
oh yeah, I couldn't believe he actually stayed true to it, but he did. I mean, it was tough. I mean, we ran out of money making it and all sorts of like nightmares in production. But the film itself, I mean, absolutely over the moon with. I mean, it's exactly what I'd written. Even a very simple film, but yeah.
You say it's a simple film?
Yeah, I mean, a simple premise. But a lot of deep diving into issues and backstory, but mostly visually. So we don't, you don't touch on too much of it. Simple premise, but yeah, there's a lot of hidden detail.
Absolutely,
that's awesome. So back to prior to this film,
yeah,
you struck this deal, and I also heard that to finance one of your shorts, you sold a car. And
yeah,
is that true? And if it is, can you tell us a story, because that's pretty awesome?
I'd worked on a couple of films as like a runner and all that, and I was desperate to make my first one. I'd written a short film. I thought, I'm going to make it by hook or by crook. And this is in 2006, 7, and digital wasn't really great then. And I'm quite a visual person. I like to make things look pretty and nice and try and build a world. I'm not amazing at doing like the found footage thing or anything like that. And I know a couple of directors that are. I mean, shout out to Rob Savage, who I know, incredible guy. He did Host, and he's got one called Dash Cam coming out. So it was very good. So I really wanted to make it look nice, and I was like, the only way I could do that is I have to do it on film. So I have to beg, borrow, and steal. Panavision sponsored me. They gave me this really amazing super 35 35mm camera for free for the film, and I got through Mill Studios for free. And I got a friend who had done really big film sets, and he came in, but we had no money to build sets. We had no money for film stock, and we had no money for developing film. Kodak gave me the film for free because they were trying to get more directors to use film. And I managed, selling the car, just about managed to pay for the sets to be built and for the film to be developed and digitized. And then the rest went on like sandwiches for people and a little bit of petrol money to get to a field. And the editing, you know, everybody worked for free. So that the money was really spent on the things that that wouldn't, I couldn't get for free. So yeah, that was tough, but great experience.
Yeah. So prior to this film, you had also had your hand in some of the film industry work, though. Like I heard you worked on An American Haunting back in 2005. Yeah. You know, and I think there was some other films along the way that you might have worked in as well. But for that to be one of your first projects out of school, and you're working with like Donald Sutherland and Sissy Spacek, what was that like?
Oh, that was. I mean, I'm a big horror fan anyway, and I remember graduating, and I was told, well, before I graduated, I was told, look, you know, you're not going to get a job in film. It might be like, you know, 3, 4, 5 years. You've got to build a network. You've got to find. So I found this book in my college library, and it was like a phone book of every single production company in London, and it had email addresses in it because there wasn't much on the internet. That's how old I feel. I've got long I've been trying to do it. And I emailed about 120 companies, and one got back to me saying they need somebody to help move furniture in their office so I can work for free for a week. And then they kept me on for a year. And because they'd just been greenlit to make American Haunting, which they filmed in Romania. And yeah, I mean, Donald Sutherland, Sissy Spacek, you know, two horror legends going together, and they built all these big sets up in Transylvania, which doubled as Tennessee. And I was just completely in awe because I'd never been on a film set before, and I hadn't seen a chair with someone's name on the back. And Adrian Biddle was the cinematographer, and he did Aliens and James Bond films, The Mummy. I think got Oscar nominated Thelma and Louise. So there's all these like legends on this big film set, and I was completely, that was it. I mean, after that, I was like, I'm doing this for life. I have to, you know, whatever it is, sell my car, do whatever it takes. I'll do it.
I will sell my soul.
100%.
So that leads us to your current film, The Shepherd. Russell, can you give our listeners a brief synopsis or summary of the film?
So a shepherd follows a guy who takes a job as a shepherd on a completely remote and desolate island alone with 600 sheep after the death of his wife. So he's running away from grief, although you get the impression he might be running away from something else. Mm-hmm. And whilst he's on there, the isolation becomes a slow spiral into madness, accumulating in his attempted escape. So it's deliberately a very slow burn, atmospheric, psychological horror.
Yeah, well done. Good synopsis right there. That definitely summed it up. So you know, this film is going to get its U.S. release May 6th. But it's already been released in the UK, correct? Yeah. And I was reading that it actually hit, I read this on your Twitter, that it hit #1 on the indie and horror iTunes charts for most downloads.
Yes, it did, yeah.
That's amazing. So can you elaborate on what the reception's been like in the UK so far?
Amazing. I mean, as I feel like you expect to be. I got absolutely destroyed because of my zombie film, which I still like. I mean, it wasn't. I didn't write it, and it was a bit of a messy script and all that. So I was just expecting to be destroyed again, and then it was the polar opposite. I had a few reviews going, I hate this, but then all these major reviewers started coming in, like Mark Commode, who's quite big in the UK for BBC Film and writes to the Guardian and all that, and Total Film magazine, and they all started giving it like really, really good reviews. And I was like, no, they must have got it wrong. Or like I had it in my head that they're going to go, oh, sorry, we made a mistake last week. Here's our updated review. So yeah, it was received really, really well. I was quite taken aback by it because I mean, I don't make films, purely for that, but it does surprise me when that happens because I mean, I watch my own stuff and oh yeah, I'm really, really proud of that. Yeah, that's exactly what I wanted to do. Wow, I can do, and I'm always in awe of other filmmakers because as a filmmaker, I can only do what I can do. I can't do what other filmmakers can do, and I'm rubbish at copying other filmmakers as well, as much as I might try. But yeah, I was overwhelmed with the reception there, and obviously the reviews have just started coming in for the US today, and there's a load of really amazing ones. Again, New York Times critics pick today, so that's another feather in my cap. Really,
awesome. I'm a big fan of this film. I really enjoyed it. I also understand it is not going to be for everybody because not everybody can sit through a slow burn. So that is something people should be aware of going into the film, right? So if you're not that type of horror fan, just don't watch it.
Yeah.
Or, so I mean, I think if you do enjoy that, there's so much to love about this film. And I'll get that to it in a second, but I want to ask you a question. You just mentioned about other directors and stuff that like you would have a hard time copying there. Who are some of the directors that you kind of feel inspired by their works, would you say?
I mean, for George Miller, I mean, when I watched Mad Max Fury Road, I mean, that's one where it just completely blows your mind. I mean, okay, it's not horror, but in my mind, that's horror. I mean, because things that dystopian future, when it's done well, he storyboarded that film more than he scripted it, and I'm a storyboard artist by trade from the beginning of my career. So to see to watch that and watch those action scenes done completely differently to how other directors would do. They'd lock off a few cameras and blow a truck up. No, there's 20 cameras, there's one glued to the side here, and then they have to do it several times so he gets the angles and the cuts that he wants. And it's a work of art, and everything from the production design to that for me is because I'm very visually motivated. That's one of the most beautiful films of last several decades. And then there's people such as Ari Aster at the moment. I mean, he's definitely such an incredible director. I mean, I can't wait for his new one with Joaquin Phoenix because his last two, I mean, Hereditary. I remember people talking about it from Sundance. I was like, oh, okay. And I was with a friend. I was in a one-bedroom flat in London. She didn't want to watch it, so I'm going to go in the bedroom. I'm going to watch it on my laptop. I sat there with my headphones on, and for those who haven't watched it, I'm sure they've all seen it. There's a certain bit in the car, and I let out this there we go. What I was like, and there's very few films that make me react like that. So that was impressive. I love that one.
Yes, that's a great film.
Yeah. So back to this film, there was Tom Hughes. And man, he was like a one-man wrecking crew in this movie. Mm-hmm. Like he was pretty incredible. And so did you have him in mind straight from the beginning? And also, did you have to give him a lot of direction? Because he brought a lot to the table there.
Yeah, he did. 100%. He I didn't have him in mind from the off, but Gemma Sykes, the casting director, and she's amazing casting director in the UK. When she sends a script out, everyone comes right now. So, and for good reason, she makes some amazing choices. And he was always on the top of her list. So I needed to check out Tom Hughes. And there were some really big names. I was surprised that we were agreeing to do this film. But they were like, oh, can you do it in April or May because of this or that? And the second you move a film, when you get a window, you then lose a your cinematographer, or you lose your sound design, or you lose all these people because everyone's so busy. I'm like, so you have to go. And Gemma got quite cross to me. You really need to check out Tom Hughes. And I'd only seen him in Victoria, where he plays Prince Albert, and I'd seen him in Cemetery Drunks from Ricky Gervais, and I was like, okay, well, what do you mean? And there was this TV series, Paula, that he'd done in BBC drama, and I watched that, and he plays this sort of psychotic guy, and it 10 minutes in, I was like, oh, is he free? Quickly, and he was available, and then he phoned me, and we were on the phone for an hour and a half. And what I'd done is I'd had to write the script, because there's not much dialogue, so it's all description. Almost the vast majority of it is just description. And he picked it straight off the description. He says, "Yeah, I know what you want. Don't worry. I know where this is going." And I storyboard everything anyway. I mean, I did about 2,000 frames of storyboards for this, so he had an idea of what the kind of action through the pacing. And I mean, it was so incredible to work with an actor who immediately just goes, "Don't worry, I know exactly what you want to go there," and his pacing, his beats, his everything was it was great to be on the same vibe. It was much easier than it looked, although even though it's for a director, for someone like me, who I've done lots of commercials and stuff, I haven't done many feature films. It's dangerous to go into this sort of territory where you need to be a bit more seasoned to be able to make sure that the production designs are put, the location, the cinematography, the sound design, the costume, everything else has to tell a story because there's no dialogue. And you have to make all those things come together and work to create an atmosphere. Otherwise, without that atmosphere, this film's just a guy walking around on an island, and it's one thing off, the house or the dog or something like that, and then you've lost your audience. So yeah, but he is 100% central, and he carries the film. So it was great to have an actor that good, and he doesn't do an incredible amount, so he's quite picky about projects. And so for him to go, yeah, no, 100%, I really want to do this was amazing.
Yeah, one of the best dog actors I've ever seen too. that
Shuggy.
Dog was awesome.
Shuggy, he's a girl as well. We could get a guy, not that it needs to be, but yeah, she was just incredible. It's amazing what you can do with corned beef. So the Scottish handler, she does like horses and all sorts of stuff. She's quite well known for, and she bought this dog. I was like, "Oh, can she do this?" It's like, I just need to stand still there and do that and not move. And I mean, she did it so well. Sometimes some people are thinking, "Is the film frozen?" It's like, no, the dog's just like stood that still.
Yeah.
Yeah, amazing. I absolutely love that dog. And I know Tom fell in love with her and wanted to adopt her, but no chance.
Yeah.
That's the same thing my wife uses to get me to do the dishes. Little corned beef.
Yeah, just put it there on the sink.
So one of the things that really stands out, and you kind of already talked about this a little bit, but it's the atmosphere is haunting. So like where most films try to utilize claustrophobic tight spaces, you did the exact opposite. Yeah. Like you utilized this wide open area to highlight the isolation that this person's seeking, and also eventually like it not only is he seeking it, but it ends up becoming like just daunting. It feels like he's just there and there's nothing around him, and I just was curious, like how can you talk about like how you created this feeling and how difficult it was for you to get like what you envisioned to actually play out, in your atmosphere?
I mean, the first thing was the location. It took so long to find the location because although it's amazing, there's a lot of beautiful places in Wales where I started. There's so many pylons and a house over there and a car and a road and a thing. And then so I had to go straight up to the west coast of Scotland, and we were looking for days and days, going to all these places on the map. We go, this would be good, this would be good. Google Maps, godsend. And couldn't find anywhere, and got to the Isle of Mull to go look at a lighthouse, which wasn't right because it was so difficult for the crew to get to. So I said, well, while we're here, I was going to do a whole drive around this island, which is huge. It's sort of 4 hours. And then literally just as we're coming back round to the other side, it was the far, far wild side of the Isle of Mull. I saw over from the road over the loch those three mountains which are in the film and the snow on the top, and I'm like, oh my god, that's it, that's the island. If I could just film it from here, can we get over there? And there's one tiny little thin road that goes there, so you can't get trucks or anything like that, and there's no house, so we had to build everything, build the set and all that. But that, well, the second I saw that land, that had such an atmosphere and a character to it. And if you're going to take an actor and do that, you need somewhere that speaks volumes without saying anything. And you know, that location was a cast member in itself. And still, to get to the atmosphere in the film, there's a lot of different things I had to do, like when he's on the opposite shore has a couple of houses and a little road with cars, and there's some telegraph wires and poles and things. So all the way, once we'd edited it, we had to go around and rub everything out digitally afterwards. And birds, there's not supposed to be any birds on the island, not supposed to be any trees on the island, so I had to rub all them out. Because the second, if you're watching it, and then the second you see a house in the background, you go, no, look, someone lives there over there. So you can't have a house. Or there's a telegraph wire. There's like, well, why is there a telegraph? But, you know, oh, well, he's got a telephone. Everything tells a story. So you've got to remove it. And as soon as you can do that, and the same with the sound, you remove the birds singing and all that, and you just make it wind and then you change the sound. So instead of wind, we had a Welsh male voice choir in a church going ooh, like that. And so you wouldn't know, but you know that there's something not quite right with the wind. And when the waves are crashing on the sea, on the shore, that's thousands of bottles being smashed and slowed down. And when the mist comes over the mountain, that's like dog barking slowed down 1,000 times. And so everything's just not, you know, it fits the image, but it's not, it's always something not quite right about it. And it's all those elements, along with the costume, along with the fact you're not quite sure what time it's set in, because there's nothing modern about it. And yet he's got a car, but yet he's got this old phone, and that doesn't work. And the fisherwoman isn't quite dressed. So it's subconsciously you're just trying to give the audience so many questions to ask without asking it consciously. And in the back of their mind, they just know there's something not right about the entire thing. And production design, again, you know, the cottage has got lots of little stories in it, and it's designed slightly askew, so it doesn't quite feel right and comfortable when you film it. And the editing as well. I'll put one character here, Kate Dickey, when she's speaking, but then when you cut back to Tommy, slightly that way, so you feel a bit uncomfortable watching the conversation rather than it cuts comfortably between their faces. So it's lots of tiny little tricks that eventually make up something which is unnerving, but it's like I say, it's a slow burn. You have to be invested.
Literally just blew my mind about those sound effects.
Yeah.
I mean, the whole, go back now.
The whole thing is designed. I mean, the sound guys were never there. I mean, we had the sound guy there recording lots of different elements of the island and the dialogue, but the sound in the film is completely designed from another island that we went to and filmed things there, and Battersea Dogs Home in London, and a ferry from Portsmouth, and all sorts of different sounds. So yeah, it was a big job.
When we're done with this, me and Josh are going to record ourselves just going, whoa, and then have it going throughout this whole interview.
Yeah. That's good. Do it.
You brought up a lot of good things, and that my next question was a lot to do with the not quite right things in the movie, so to speak. There was a lot of things that really messed with you. Like there was a scene of waves, but they were upside down. And I was like, what's going on here? And that creepy eye in the taxidermy head and things like that, even the small stock footage that was in between, I felt was placed there specifically to mess with you along the way. And I just want to say kudos to you, because that's absolutely genius. And can we look forward to more of that in the future, please?
Oh, 100%. Yeah. I mean, everything I write is full of, I mean, particularly doing commercials these days as well. I mean, you're trying to sell something to an audience, whereas when you do a film, you're trying to sell the film itself to the audience. There's nothing else you're trying to sell. So, I mean, being able to use all the little tricks to try and hook people in and certainly ask questions. I mean, with this film, when it gets to the end, there are about 6 scenarios, possibilities that people can go off and talk about. So I haven't ended it where it's like, oh right, okay, so that's where he is, or that's what he's done, and da da da. It's like, no, he was there. No, he was there. To be able to do something like that and leave people hang it. Some people hate it and go, oh well, I don't get it or whatever, and other people go, oh brilliant. I love the way that you're left to decide for yourself, and that we did have one very specific ending. So only myself and Tom Hughes knows where Eric really is. And then I told Stoddy, the cinematographer, a completely different scenario, and I told the production designer completely different scenarios. So they're doing their own stories around that. So it gives people, because there's not much dialogue, it gives you as a viewer lots to look at and read into and think, oh well, hold on a minute, he's moved the camera like that, so that must mean that, or look at those props in the background, so that must mean that this happened. So it's layered.
I swore at the end. I don't usually do that. I literally I was watching in bed. I came off the bed. What the? And I was like, what's happening? And
that's a good reaction.
Yeah, that doesn't. And then I took a step back. I was like, wow, that usually doesn't happen when I watch a movie. So kudos to you. I surprised myself with my own reaction. So a good ending. Cool. Good ending.
Good. Thank you.
I'm hearing right now that you and Tom Hughes are the only ones who know the real story of like the ending of where he is.
Yeah. Because I had to tell him, he's like, in that last shot, it's when he looks out and it's his reaction to what he's looking at. And he has to know exactly so I needed a certain type of reaction to lock in my story. So I had to tell him. But everybody else got lots of different scenarios to make. So you can think, oh, okay, well, he's dead, or he's mad, or it's witchcraft, or it's X, Y, and Z. But yeah, as long as you're following him, it's all in his performance.
Yes. Well, thank you for that very elaborate kind of like overview of this movie. I really hope that people are able to give this film a watch and kind of appreciate everything that we've been discussing. I wanted to ask you if you have any advice or any lessons you've learned about being a new filmmaker, or having like this is like your own project, like not like Inmate Zero where you're directing somebody else's. This is all you, right?
Yeah.
So do you have any advice for people that are kind of interested in doing that, or any lessons you learned throughout the process?
Yeah, I mean, overall, and it's been a nightmare of nearly 2 decades of me trying to make films. The best advice I can give anyone is don't take anyone else's advice. Filmmaking is it's like painting a picture. It's like writing a story, something like that. Some people love it, some people are going to hate it. You get money people who try and design and template everything because they know, oh well, that sells and this doesn't, and that. If you love film, always go with your gut instinct always. And if I'd have gone with my gut years ago, I probably would have made this film much sooner, but instead I took advice, and that slowed everything down. It stopped it. There was one producer I worked with for ages who used to say, no, it's too early to be doing this, it's too early to be doing that. And it's kind of like sometimes like, no, I'm ready. And even if you get bad reviews and people hate it, great, that's not a failure. It's a great lesson, because then you can look and go, okay, what did people not like, and just let that sink in, and then throw it in the bin, and then carry on regardless, going with your gut. So always go with your gut.
Great advice.
Art is all subjective, right?
Exactly that. Yeah. No one storms into an art gallery and go, this is all crap. We're all like, oh yeah, it's amazing.
And I truly do believe that like people just should know like what they prefer. And if it's not something that you prefer, don't trash it just because it's exactly what you don't prefer. Like when I hear people say, I don't really like slow burns, and then they watch a movie that's a slow burn, they complain that it takes so long. It's like, of course it does. That's the whole point.
Yeah, I mean, I was worried about it coming out on TV. I was like, oh, hold on. Well, people are going to go off and they're going to make a cup of tea, or they're going to be, and the kids running around, the dogs, and they're pausing it. I was like, how's the atmosphere going to fill the room? So I'm so chuffed it's coming out in cinemas in the US as well, because then I've locked you in a room and you have to sit there and be absorbed into it. But it's gone down really well on VOD and Blu-ray, so that's awesome.
Yeah, I feel like this is a film that people from our area of the United States are going to connect with. So our state, H.P. Lovecraft is originally from our state, and it has a Lovecraftian vibe to it. Like I kind of sense that. So I could picture people kind of connecting to that because we do have a love for the H.P. Lovecraft works here. So
okay, oh well, there we go. Yeah, that's brilliant. Well, what state's that?
Rhode Island.
Oh right, okay. Oh nice.
Yeah, we're the smallest, tiniest little state.
That was the first film festival I ever got into. It was Rhode Island Film Festival. My film that I sold my card to make.
Awesome. Yeah.
I was like, yes, I'm in a film festival.
Yeah, awesome.
So before you go, I just have one last question. We have a playlist, a PVD horror playlist, and what we've been doing is everybody that comes on, we just ask them 2 of your favorite songs to add to the playlist.
Oh, that's a hard one.
Straight out of left field.
Out of left field songs. I'm really rubbish with music. I listen to loads of film soundtracks, but that's only just what I'm writing. I'm going, okay, this is great. That fits. It gives me ideas. 2 songs.
Hey, it could be soundtracks, whatever floats your boat, man.
We have All the Time in the World. I love that. I'm a big James Bond fan of the music from James Bond. And I can't.
Yeah.
Oh no! No, hold on. No, I can't. No.
Yeah,
I can't give you a second one. It's too hard.
That's all right. That's all right. We got one. That's good enough.
Yeah, you. And you do have all the time in the world.
Yes.
There you go.
Russell, can you tell people first where can they find you on social media and stuff?
I'm on Instagram and Twitter, and it's just at Russ Owen, SS Owen.
Okay. And your film, The Shepherd, is releasing in the US May 6th. So I hope people will find that. That's going to be in select theaters and on video on demand.
Video on demand, May 10th. Yeah. So if you can get to sit in a theater near you, that would be amazing.
I think that would be the best way to view this film for sure. Limit all your distractions.
Exactly that.
Russ, thank you so much for joining us, man. This was a great interview.
Super cool movie. Super cool to meet you also. Thank you so much.
No, thank you so much for having me. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you. Everybody check out The Shepherd and continue to just follow Russ and everything that he creates. I think he's got a lot in store for us. So thank you.
Thank you.
Have a great night. Thank you.